Welcome back to Ghost Powered Entertainment. I'm your host, Kanan Becker, and today we do another deep dive into Shudder. And real quick before we get into this, if you could do me a favor and hit that like button, because that really does help this channel out so much. For those of you not familiar with this channel, once a week I dive into one of the popular streaming platforms and come up with 10 horror movies to recommend to you guys. And this week I jumped into Shudder and came up with 10 horror movies that I think you will enjoy. And with that, let's get to the list. Kicking this list off is a film called Manhunter.
Intruder entered through kitchen sliding door.
Nationwide victims.
Yeah, this is Will Graham of the FBI.
One killer.
So this is for all those fans up there like myself of Silence of the Lambs and that whole mythos, right? The Hannibal story. Because this is where it all started as far as films go. This is the first film to introduce you to the character of Hannibal Lecter. And for all those fans of the TV series Hannibal, this is also right up that alley. This tells a lot of the same stories that are similar from the TV series Hannibal. There's actually direct scenes and things that are straight from what we saw in that show. So this isn't quite as exciting and action-packed as films like Silence of the Lambs or even really the series Hannibal for that matter. It's still a very interesting psychological thriller / horror with the characters searching for the serial killer Tooth Fairy. It is just a very interesting story no matter which rendition of it, and to me I think this is definitely worth watching, especially if you're a fan of that story, because this is kind of where it began. And this film also has an absolutely stellar cast, people that you'll recognize from all kinds of projects that they would do later on. All in all, it's just a very cool movie and a lot of fun to see Hannibal Lecter on the big screen for the first time and see what would later on lead to the film Silence of the Lambs and then the series Hannibal. So I definitely recommend this movie.
One hunter.
I'm not finding him. Damn it.
FBI agent Will Graham. Manhunter.
Next up, we go to the film Revenge. So this movie is very strange because it's definitely a revenge movie. You know, it's that age-old story of a woman gets raped or assaulted in some way by a group of men or a man and gets revenge. You know, that whole thing. We've seen that, but this is different. It has a very overall different feel about it. And I think a lot of people are going to be bothered by this because, dare I say it, is this a fun revenge movie? Rape, attack, assault movie? I have to say, yeah, it's colorful, it's bright, it's got a lot of exciting, fun, gory scenes, and just one of the more gory movies I've seen for an original on Shudder. It's just, you shouldn't revel in these kind of things. So it left me very torn, but I can't lie and say I didn't enjoy it. I did. I absolutely enjoyed this movie. Especially the star in this movie. She's brilliant and an absolute fucking savage. Just goes and just kicks some ass and really does take it to the villains in the most awful, awesome ways. Either way, if this sounds like something that might be up your alley, definitely check it out. But be warned, this could really offend some people. I did enjoy it, but it's definitely not for everyone. Next, we go to a movie I've recommended numerous times on this channel, and that is 13 Ghosts.
Most of them, they can't hurt us. Most of them don't even want to hurt us. But there are exceptions.
So I've talked at length on this channel about the movies that are kind of a guilty pleasure for me, and it's mostly movies from the early 2000s, the 2000 aughts to the single digit, whatever the fuck that's called. You know what I mean? Early 2000s movies that have that fucking shitty shine polish on them and CGI that is starting to age in a really poor way, but yet has charm in some way. And 13 Ghosts epitomizes that because it has some really awful acting and some even worse scripts, but yet God damn it if this movie isn't fun. A lot of what makes this movie so much fun is these ghosts. And if you're not familiar with the movie, this family inherits this house And trapped inside of this house is Ghost in these glass chamber kind of things.
What the hell was that?
And they go there and all hell breaks loose. It's just a fun movie without really much of a script, no depth really to that at all. But the real star is just the Ghost. The character design, the way they look, they're just a lot of fun, and to me, worth watching this movie even if it's just for them. So if you've never seen 13 Ghosts and this sounds like something you might enjoy, I think it's definitely worth giving a shot, especially since right now it's on Shudder.
Can I rely on you not to get me killed?
I guarantee you nothing.
Next up, we go to a very brutal and fucked up movie, and that is Audition. Alright, so this movie is fucked up. Like, this is the epitome of just a jacked up situation. But yet, it's fun. It's got this weird, fucked up charm about it that kind of leaves you wincing, but yet also just giggling to yourself. It's just demented and twisted. It's about this girl who goes to this audition, or at least what she thinks is an audition for an acting role, but in reality, it's not. In reality, it's this guy is trying to find a wife, basically. He's just this rich guy who's staging a movie audition, but really it's just to find his next wife. What he doesn't know is the girl that he falls for is batshit fucking crazy and goes on to torture him in some of the most fucked up ways. But damn, this movie is fun and yet very much makes you wince and squirm throughout the movie many, many times. Kitty, kitty, kitty is all I gotta say. This is just a great movie that I love, and since it's on Shudder right now, I was like, I have to recommend this. But this movie's not for everyone. If you're not someone who enjoys stuff that gets very brutal in a very real way, movies like Hostel, etc., then this is probably not a movie for you. But if you can handle that, it does have a lot more than that to offer. It is just an extremely well done movie that's beautifully shot, acted, directed, really checks all the boxes, and one that I definitely recommend. Next up, Vicious Fun.
Need a ride?
As far as I can.
Hop in.
So this is one of the more fun movies that I've discovered recently on Shudder. It was just added a couple weeks ago. It's a Shudder exclusive, and it is a goddamn blast. Like, I absolutely love this movie because it is like what it says in the title, fun. Doesn't take anything too serious. This movie is very meta in a lot of ways because it's about this guy who is a big fan of horror. And it is a throwback piece. This is supposed to take place in the 80s, but the main concept of this movie is about this group of serial killers. This dude who is a fan of horror movies, on accident, ends up in an AA meeting type of thing, a support group for serial killers.
Sorry to interrupt your meeting.
Thanks so much for coming out. How do you maintain your lifestyle and keep your urges under control?
What is this, some kind of support group for serial killers?
Why are you here?
It's complicated.
He just gets himself involved in this carnage candy, gory good time, but don't take it too serious, turn your brain off a bit, and I think you will have a blast with this movie. Next is another Shudder original, and that is The Call.
Does everybody have a cookie?
I loved Edith more than life.
Edward, you are my fresh air.
I wished I was here to protect.
All right, so this movie stars Lin Shaye and Tobin Bell, and they absolutely kill it in this movie. But the downside of having two amazing stars like them, I think for a small budget kind of movie like this, is that they had to cut a little bit on the corners, and some of the other actors in this movie aren't the greatest. I don't think you should let that take away from you checking this movie out, because this is one of the better Shudder originals in my opinion. I really enjoyed this movie. It's got a really unique twist and turn type of story that deals with supernatural elements, but yet it has just this grittiness about it too that I really enjoyed. So the basic concept of this movie is there's this group of friends who something happened and they think that Lin Shaye's character is a witch. And so they just continually are driving her crazy. They play pranks on her. They're just driving her mad.
Move your arm. Oh.
Going somewhere?
Oh, I'm sorry, old hag.
You are lucky my husband is not here. He would shoot you. Now get out!
And one thing leads to another, and she goes for revenge, but in a very creepy, supernatural, disturbing way. Tobin Bell has a pretty significant role in this movie as well, and like I said earlier, he acts his ass off in this. He just plays this very interesting character who's dealing with loss and sadness, but yet also is scary and out for revenge.
Devastating to her.
All in all, for a little indie kind of flick, I think this is a home run.
What do you want?
Vengeance.
Next up, we go to the amusement park.
There's nothing outside. Nothing.
So this movie has had a lot of hype surrounding it because in a lot of ways this will end up being the last George A. Romero movie ever done. Because unless they find another unreleased movie and finish it and release it, which is very doubtful, this will be the last one. That being said, I'm surprised how much this is actually a great little flick. Now, you can't go into this movie expecting to be entertained because it's a very dark, sad, and in some ways depressing kind of movie, which isn't got a lot of bells and whistles, doesn't have the most amazing actors, especially considered a lot of the actors in this aren't actors at all. They're just elderly playing themselves. So this movie is basically about this amusement park, which is really just an allegory for life. And this old man is at this amusement park, and everything in this amusement park they use in some way to symbolize different elements of life. And it just really goes and shows you how bad the elderly have it in this world, and how in a lot of ways we're just mean and hurtful and just don't give a shit about our elderly like we should. And as someone who's starting to get up there in age, I'm not old yet, but I'm definitely getting up there in age, my mortality is facing me in the mirror every day. And it just made this movie hit home even harder. But keep in mind, like I said, a lot of the actors in this are elderly people playing themselves or even young volunteers. They didn't really have much of a budget for a cast at all. It's just people being themselves. So there's not the greatest job of acting. There's not a lot of money in the special effects. It's pretty much a very small budget type of movie. And it's very strange because it's not your normal kind of movie and it's only like an hour. If you're a fan of George A. Romero or film for that matter, I think this is definitely a must watch.
Hello? There's nothing out there. I'll see for myself.
All right, next up we go to the Superdeep. Alright, so when I did a review, I did a full review, if you want to check it out, it's over here. I kind of killed this movie because I still stand by the fact that this is a boring slog in a lot of ways. But I've had a lot of people talking crap to me about that because they felt like I just didn't get it. Don't get me wrong, I did get it. But see, I also recently saw two movies that were very similar to this movie. Gaia, and the other one is In the Earth. And to me, both those movies, which are about very similar things, did this but did it even better. But that being said, the special effects in this movie are phenomenal. Some of the best practical effects I've seen in a very long time, and just that alone was the reason I put it on this list, because to me it is that good, those special effects, that even though it is a little boring and you do have to kind of stay patient and get through some over dialogue situations in this movie, it is still worth the watch because the special effects are a blast.
How do you feel? I'm fine, thank you.
And it is a cool concept kind of movie. It's hard for me to tell you what the concept of this movie is without giving it away, but it's basically about this group of people that go down in this deep, deep hole and discover a form of life that ends up jeopardizing humanity and threatening to kill them and etc. Like I said, similar to the movie Gaia, similar to the movie In the Earth. No matter what, I think this is definitely one worth watching. Just be ready for a bit of a slow burn that does get kind of boring at times, but still is worth a watch. Next up, we go to the documentary Scream Queen.
In the midst of the 1980s, no one was scarier than Freddy Krueger.
I love Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah, I was obsessed. Loving Freddy Krueger, loving A Nightmare on Elm Street.
But part 2 came along and it was just a strange movie.
So this movie really opened my eyes in a lot of ways to the homophobia that exists, especially in the horror community in this country, and just the overall plight of the LGBTQ community. Because this movie is about Mark Patton, who is the star of what is called the gayest horror movie ever made, and that would be Friday the 13th Part 2.
You idiot.
And I actually enjoy that film. But after seeing this documentary, I just have a whole new level of respect for him and of the movie in general and what they were trying to accomplish.
And Mark Patton's, he's a scream queen.
It's definitely an eye-opening type of documentary that I know I'm not alone in saying it has been very profound to a lot of people that love horror, and it just gives you a different level of respect. It just gives you a look behind the scenes, so to speak, behind the curtain of a part of our society, especially in horror, that is treated like shit, and especially back in the 80s, and just the shit that this poor guy had to go through and still does to this day is just atrocious.
Some of the circumstances around the making of this film created a lot of hurt for him.
And it's something that I feel like if you are a fan of horror, it is a must watch. So definitely check this documentary out.
If you don't think that this is all interconnected, then you need to do your math again.
And last up on this list is one of the OGs, one of the greatest horror movies ever made, and that would be Creepshow.
Jolting tales of horror.
So I absolutely love the original Creepshow. It's definitely one of my favorite movies ever done. Everything about this movie is iconic to me. I love the stories of each one of these anthology stories. I love the characters involved. I just love that Stephen King is in the damn movie. It's got the writing of Stephen King, the directing of George A. Romero, and if that's not enough, the special effects were done by the OG himself, and that is Tom Savini. I could not love this movie more. To me, this is a perfect horror movie and also a perfect time capsule of horror in the 80s.
You'll scream at ghastly ghouls, cringe at weird kids, and shiver at the doings of evil doctors.
For the few out there that are horror fans that haven't seen this movie, this needs to be the very first thing you watch from this list. And for those of you that have, this is one of the most rewatchable horror movies ever made, one that I rewatch probably once every year. So definitely do yourself a favor and check it out.
No, this is going to be an entirely new experience.
Creepshow, the most fun you'll ever have being scared.
Alright guys, that's going to do it for me today. Please leave your comments down below. I always love hearing from you guys. I'd love to hear what you've seen from this list and what you plan to check out. But no matter what, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button and ding that little bell, because that is the best way to keep track of this channel. And when I post videos like this, and I post videos like this at least 2 times every week. And I also want to give a massive, huge, enormous thank you to my patrons, because you guys, yeah, you guys, mean so much to me. And if you would like to find out more about becoming a patron, the link is down in the description. And like always, thank you so much for watching. Please crush that like button. And remember guys, horror can be fun. I will see you guys next time.